Welcome to Mom Boss Central. I'm your host, Alexia Hoffman. This podcast is where entrepreneurial moms like you and me come together for real and raw conversations filled with practical tips, genuine stories, and a whole lot of girl power. But it's not just about listening, it's about building a community. If you haven't already, make sure to join at mombosscentral.com. So whether you're sipping on a cup of coffee, pouring yourself a glass of wine, or tuning in on the go, get ready to join the conversation and become part of our supportive Mom Boss Central community. Hi, Erika. Welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you on. If you want to give a quick introduction, a little bit about yourself, your family, and your business, we would love to learn more about you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alexia, for having me. My name is Erika, and I am currently a social worker and a mental health specialist. I am a mother of four. I have four boys. I'm married, and I am a PhD student, and I am also taking care of my 98-year-old grandmother who has dementia. And on top of that, I decided to start a podcast, and it's called Family Unlock, where we have these really uncomfortable conversations, but try to make it fun and comfortable and easy. And we've started this venture, and I don't know when I sleep, but I try to sleep, and I'm having fun while I do it.
I love it. That is so great. I think there is so much that we can dive into for our entrepreneurial moms that are listening, but I'd love to start with a little bit about the age of your kids and how that aligned with your business.
So, funny story, I started having babies in high school. I had my first son. I started school shortly after, about, I want to say sophomore, junior year. I had my first son. He's 25. His name's Eric. And then soon after we got out of high school, I had my second son. His name is Jesse. He's 22. And then through the grace of God, I found my husband, and we had twin boys who are 10 years old now.
I love it. That is so cool. So when did you start getting into business, and how did you, now going for your PhD, how did that kind of get shaped by having kids? And
So I think when it really started, it was when I turned, I want to say 22, and my children's father and I did not make it through high school together. We didn't have that beautiful love story. And I found my passion in wanting to help people. And since I was a child, I always wanted to be a doctor. I just didn't know in what magnitude. So I started working with at-risk youth, which was so funny because I had just got out of high school, and now I'm working with youth and trying to educate them on teen pregnancies and gang violence, because I live in a town where there's predominantly Latinos, and we had a lot of gang affiliation. And so we lived in an environment that wasn't the safest. So I dived into that community of trying to educate my fellow Latinos. And that really just propelled me to want to learn more about psychology. So I went to school for psychology. And then within that field, I started working with families who had domestic violence or drugs, or have lost custody of their children. And that's really what propelled me forward to start looking into mental health therapy, because it's so difficult, especially when you're a person of color. It's really, it's not welcome. The conversation was not something that was easily discussed. It's not like we sat around the kitchen table and talked about how was your day. It really was, it was not something we really did. So finding interest in that, I actually started school in nursing because I thought I wanted to do that medical route, but I ended up doing mental health. And so I just went to school, started doing that, and then I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Now my focus is really on moms, because I think that we just don't take care of ourselves. And it's not like we're not intentionally not wanting to take care of ourselves. I think we have this real, true, genuine thought that taking care of my husband and children, or just my children, is like taking care of myself. But we're running on fumes, right? We're
Yeah.
forgetting who we are, we're losing our dreams. And it's not like intentional, we're not bitter about it, but it's at the end of the day, when we lay our head, do we really feel purposeful in our life? I think that's
Yeah.
really what my hope is to encourage other moms.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think that was a huge part of starting this community because I think for me, my passion was my business before I had kids. And even when my husband and I started dating, he said, like, one of the things he loved most about me was how passionate I was. And it felt like once we had kids and my goals and my vision for my business kind of shifted, that was like so tied to my identity. And it felt like I felt a shame for not necessarily wanting to do exactly what I did before I had kids. So I think that's so important too, is, for any of the entrepreneurial moms that are listening to realize like your identity can evolve with you. Like you don't have to be stuck in what you thought you wanted, or if you had kids and your goals are changing, like it's okay to go after those new goals. You don't have to sacrifice what you want, even if you have something that's currently great. Because I think that's like that mom guilt or mom shame of like, okay, well, I am so grateful for my time with my kids. I also want to run a business. I also want to have time for myself. I also want to connect with my spouse one on one. So I think
Mhm.
all of that is so important and ties directly into what you're saying too about losing yourself, because it feels like it's so easy to put our wants just deep down and kind of tuck them away
Mhm.
and say, oh, when the kids are older or when things slow down. But it's like, what happens when the kids are older and things haven't slowed down and you still haven't acted on those dreams and that dream life that you had always wished of?
Right. And I think we, as moms and women, I think we fold, right?
Mhm.
There's this interwoven thought process that if I'm caring for my children and my husband, I should feel fulfilled, right? There
Mhm.
should be this kind of,
Yeah.
well, you chose this path, you chose to have
Mhm.
kids. So now your individuality revolves around motherhood
Mm.
and wife, right? And
Yeah.
so we that's what we're taught to embrace, right? We're
Yeah.
not allowed to think outside the box because it
Yeah.
just can get too hectic or whatever, but it's not encouraged, I should say. But I think the
Mhm.
most important piece of that is you do it afraid. You don't, it's
Yeah.
so hard to know where to start, how to start. And it's kind of like parenting, right? When we have our babies, we're like, what did I do? You're
Yeah.
so excited in those 9 months. You think you're prepared, but
Yeah.
and a business is exactly the same. It becomes
Yeah.
your baby. You want to
Yep.
nurture it. You find fulfillment. You
Mhm.
find like your purpose. You're driven. You're great. Your tenacity, right? It's all of that in one. But I think the most intricate piece of when you start a business is learning how to take those little pieces and really mindfully be engulfed in that, because women, we just put everything together.
Yeah.
We can cook, we can do our homework at the same time, we can feed the baby, we have a baby here, we're nursing, we're doing all these things.
Yeah.
But sometimes we're going to have to disconnect and be able to just handle one thing at a time so we can be present. And don't get me wrong, I think that we there's times that we have to live kind of like
Yeah.
we got to handle everything and not think too much about it. And I think we're great to perform that. But when it's intentional and we really want to start something, sitting down and thinking, like, what am I good at? What do I want to do? What do
Yeah.
I have a gift? What can I share with the world?
Yeah, definitely. What advice do you have for a mom who's trying to figure out how to kind of work towards that, but feels like there's just too much to juggle? Because you obviously are doing a lot, but you've been able to find some of that peace and still pursue your passion. So what advice do you have for moms that?
I think that's a loaded question. I think I would always start, and I know because I'm a mental health specialist, I'm always thinking of mental health. But I think that the most important piece, like what I do with my family to make sure that they're getting all their dreams in order, is we do a vision board. And when we create a vision board, we put what our hopes and dreams are. It's not priorities. It's not my
Oh, yeah.
to-do list. It's nothing to do with that. It's my
Yeah.
goals, right? But more importantly, my dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that everyday life will take every inch and every moment of your day. Just life
Mm-hmm.
will, right? Because
Yeah.
we always find, we're humans, we'll always find something to put into that moment that we don't have anything to do. As
Yeah.
moms, sometimes it's so hard for us to find peace, right? When
Yeah.
somebody tells me, can't you just unplug and relax? I'm like, how do you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know what that's like, right? Because
Yeah.
our mind is constantly going, what do we have to do tomorrow? What do we have to do next week? We have to prepare. What is
Mm-hmm.
that vacation going to look like in 6 months? Because we have to make sure there's sunscreen, there's, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
toilet wipes, there's like so many things you need to have prepared. So you're already thinking, right? So in that moment, when you give yourself a disciplined hour, we'll just say 1 hour out of the day,
Mm-hmm.
where you jot down or create your vision board, that's the day, that's that moment for you. It can't even be a whole day. We don't, as moms, we don't have a whole day. But for that hour, we have that moment that we're reconnecting with who we were and what we
Yeah.
wanted. And I
Yeah.
think that's such a important piece, because if you don't feel fulfilled, life is like you're going to be 80 looking back at your life thinking, how come I didn't do that? And
Yeah.
there's two pieces
Definitely.
that reminded me of a situation that happened for me when you asked me that question. I have
Mm-hmm.
two memories. One, I had prayed for this job. I really wanted it's a great job. I'm going to work for the government. I couldn't wait. It was everything that I was going to school for.
Mm-hmm.
And one day I'm walking into the clinic and I see all of us that work there arriving at the same time, carrying the same laptop, getting into our cubes, taking lunch at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
going home at the same time. And I felt like, wow, we're robots.
Yeah.
Like, is this life? Our 8 to 5? We're like robots. We're all doing the
Yeah.
same thing. And I'm making a life for someone else by meeting
Mm-hmm.
their quotas, meeting their productivity, meeting their
Yeah.
deadlines, right?
Yeah.
And it made me sad.
Yeah.
Like, this is what life is, you know?
Mm.
And the second one was I just, I remember being happy and wanting to be with my family during my maternity leave.
Mm.
And I had to stop and put
Yeah.
on another. And I just felt like unfulfilled.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so huge. I think that, like, going back to what you said too about living a fulfilled life and doing that vision board, I think what's so powerful is giving yourself the space to really explore what that dream life looks like. Because I think so often we will have a dream come into our mind and we'll dismiss it because it feels too big or too far away or too scary. And instead of embracing that as, like, oh, I really want to work towards this goal, maybe it'll take 10 or 20 years, we push it down and we push it away and we say, oh, there's a different season for that, or not right now, it's not realistic. When really we should be tapping into that and putting it somewhere where we're reminded often of what we want so we can actually take steps towards that life. Because I think we don't allow ourselves to fully dream, especially in a season for me of young kids. It's so easy for people to say, oh, but you won't be traveling anytime soon. Or, oh, for your business, you won't be doing X, Y, and Z anytime soon. And it's like, no, that's not true. I can do whatever I want, regardless of what season my kids are on. I mean, it's up to me and what feels right. Like, I'm not going to be sure traveling across the world by myself and, being gone for months at a time, but I can still travel. I can still think of the life that I want and take steps towards that. Maybe I'm not achieving my big goal this year, but you better believe I am still conscious of where I want to go so that I can take actionable steps right now that are propelling me closer and reminding me and fulfilling me in maybe a smaller scale way in the meantime. Because I think by not acknowledging it, you're not taking any steps in that direction. And that's how we live this like unfulfilled, regretful life of, oh, I wish I would have spent more time going after that. Or waiting till your kids are out of the house and saying, now I'm going to start, but it feels too late. Right. So it's like this double-edged sword of not going after it or not being aware of it is going to hurt you on both ends, where you
Mm-hmm.
think you're doing the, honorable thing by waiting. It's like you're not living your most fulfilled life and you're not being your best self for your kids and your family.
Yeah. You know, another story I have, or example, sometimes I meet with elderly people,
Mm-hmm.
and never has there been a time when when we talk about like life and what they wish they would have done.
Mm-hmm.
Never do they tell me, I wish I would have met that deadline. I
Mm,
wish I would have done X, Y, and Z for my
yeah.
boss.
Yeah.
Their boss is never in their mind. It's
Yeah.
always, I wish I would have met my goals. I wish I would have traveled more. I wish I
Mm-hmm.
would have stayed with the kids more. I wish I
Mm-hmm.
would have, you know, did it afraid,
Yeah.
even when I'm afraid.
Yeah.
And that hit hard for me because I'm just like, wow, there's nothing like that feeling of regret or
Yeah.
disappointment. I don't think I want that.
Yeah, seriously. I think that's why it's so important for us to like listen to our intuition and kind of trust that gut, because I think we as women and as moms, we get it in our mind that we need to say no to a lot of the things that come up because it isn't easy or convenient right now. But instead of saying no, if we could rephrase that and say, okay, maybe not right now, but how can I tap into something that aligns with that now and put that big goal on hold instead of it's a no, it's a not yet, but I can still take those small steps today to tap into whatever it is about that I'm excited about. So maybe I can't go to Europe for a month right now, but can I set up a weekend trip away, right? And tap into that need for adventure that I'm feeling. Or if you want to spend more time with your kids, maybe you can't quit your full-time job, but can you block off a weekend day for one-on-one time to go to a water park or to do something fun? It's like setting those small achievable goals for now that will help fulfill the why behind the big goal, I think is such a huge thing that so many people just dismiss because it doesn't seem convenient or it doesn't seem easy, but it is possible. We just have to be intentional, like you were saying,
Hmm.
about going after that and being.
Hmm. You know, I think new moms specifically, when you hear the word intentional, it's like, oh, another job.
Yeah.
And now I
Yeah.
have to be intentional on top of, on autopilot. Like if I'm on autopilot, everything is smooth sailing, right?
Yeah.
So you're hitting like the nail on the head. What does it look like? Because the key to opening a business, starting a relationship, having a
Mhm.
baby is consistency, right? It's all
Yeah.
about, the key is consistency. Sometimes you're going to have to make that vision board or that goal list
Mhm.
when the kids are in school or when this happens. It's okay.
Yeah.
That's how we start. It's just one step at a time, whatever fits for you. There's no, like, what worked for you may not have worked for me. What worked for me may not have worked for you, right?
Yep.
And
Exactly.
I think it's what looks doable for that person, because we don't want it to be another burden or another job, or we want it to be fun,
Yeah.
exciting, because that's really
Yeah.
what opening a business is. It's so exciting. It's a lot
Mhm.
of work, but
Mhm.
it's so exciting because it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially if you're feeling fulfilled when you do it, it's like you get energy. It's not like
Hmm.
a draining thing where when you're misaligned and it's not something that you're passionate about, it can feel like such an energy suck. And I think that's where people get caught up is if you're used to working in a capacity that drains your energy. Business can be tied to, like, it's almost like a dirty word. Like work feels like a dirty word because so many people aren't fulfilled in what they're doing. They're not aligned. They're not passionate. So it's this energy draining event. When work for me, when I'm fulfilled and when I'm aligned and when I'm passionate about what I'm doing, like that's giving me energy. That's making me a better wife, a better mom, a better friend, a better person, because I know even though, yeah, I'm tired, it's hard work. It's still like
Mhm.
fulfilling and it's a joyful thing that I'm like looking forward to, even if I have a challenge that comes up or something that I'm not expecting. It's like, ooh, I love that ability to problem solve, or oh, I like that I get to look at this in like a new light where I otherwise wouldn't have. But I think when you get faced with a roadblock, if it's something that you're not enjoying, then that's where it's like it feels like the wheels have fallen off and it's horrible. But truly, when it's something that you love, I think we just like approach it so differently. So I think that what you
Yeah, it's I mean, I would want everybody to try and, you know, fulfill whatever hope and dream they have, but really sit with themselves and find out what that is, you know.
Mhm.
But I think, oh, I whatever I can do to help support someone to get to what they want to do, it's always fulfilling for me.
Yeah.
So I'm so appreciative that you have this platform to share with others because it's not easy. It's really where to start, right? And the fear,
Yeah.
you got to do it afraid. You
Yeah.
got because there's a saying I have on my vision board that says, um, but what if it does? And what that means
Mhm.
is, our mind constantly says, what if this doesn't happen? Or what if this, or what if that? And
Mhm.
I had to switch my brain to, but what if it does? And what
Yeah.
if it's better and
Yeah.
bigger?
Definitely. What challenges do you have a specific challenge that you can speak about that you had to overcome, kind of juggling, running?
Oh yeah, there's so many challenges that come with it. I think being present is really difficult
Mm,
when being a mom. I
yeah.
think that you forget how fast it happens, how fast they grow up. And you
Mm,
think tomorrow, 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 I'll be
yeah.
more present. Tomorrow I'll take them to the park. Tomorrow I'll do this.
Yeah.
And before you know it, they're 10. And you're like,
Yeah.
wow. So with my older boys, I was constantly on autopilot. So with my twins, I made sure to take in every moment, even if it was for 4 seconds. And I just looked
Mhm.
at them and I smiled them and I took every moment that I could with grace.
Yeah.
I really did. I wanted to just remember that. And
Yeah.
so, and now with older boys, I try not to sit in that, man, I wish they were five
Mm,
again, or
yeah.
what could I have done differently? I enjoy them being 25. I
Yeah.
enjoy them being 22. I enjoy, okay, what can I do with them? We can go have a cocktail together. We can have coffee together. Like they're grown,
Yeah.
so we can do
Yeah.
fun things and not sit in the, of course I wish I would have done things different. I was 15, of course, it's like
Yeah.
there's so much I would have done differently. But what am I doing now?
Yeah.
They come to Disneyland with us still. Like
That's so
We're
fun.
going to Orlando, they're coming with us. And
Yeah.
that I think says so much about our family,
Yeah.
that we still want to be. I remember being 25 there. I was no way I was going with my family like boring. But that was, I think that's the most important piece is just moment by moment. It doesn't have to be all the time. You don't
Yeah.
have to be grateful and intentional and all that all the time. It can just be in that moment. And I
Yeah.
think also enjoying your spouse.
Yeah.
Sometimes it ends up where you feel like your spouse is another job. Like you're
Mhm.
just another responsibility. Dude, get it
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
But remembering that they're your partner.
Mhm.
And I think that was a challenge because I felt like if I'm gonna start a business, I'm neglecting this part.
Mhm.
And then the guilt,
Yeah.
right? You said mom guilt. Oh God, that mom guilt. I mean,
Yeah.
holy cow.
Yeah.
I feel guilty going to the bathroom and locking it,
That is so relatable.
you know.
Yeah.
And they're like, I still have my son at 25 knocking on the door. I'm like, dude, I'm taking a
Yeah, give me
shower.
a break.
But I think
That's
it's
so
just,
funny.
they don't think like that. So
Yeah.
I think the challenge, the mom guilt, the not taking time to breathe, because
Yeah.
if we breathe, we're afraid that the cards might fall.
Yeah. Yeah. I think to go back
Finding,
I'm sorry. I think to go back to what you were saying though about those seasons and like to not let it pass and to soak it in. For when I had the twins in the first 6 months, everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, it's horrible. It's so hard. It's this, it's that." And for me, what I kept saying was, I just don't want to wish the season away and regret that I didn't enjoy it. So like even in that hard season, it was like if I can sit here and wish they could sit up. I wish they could walk. I wish they could talk. Even still, I mean, they're only 16 months. So it's like I wish we could go on a family trip and they would listen. Like I could say all of that, but then what am I wishing away? What am I skipping over if we were there? And that's
That
what I
part.
try to like focus on is like even on the worst nights and the longest days, it's like, okay, I really have been trying to be so intentional about not wishing away any season because I can't go back. It's like once they start walking, they're not really crawling anymore. And that is something that like it's nice in some ways, but it's also really sad. It's like my little babies are growing up and same with like their communication and now they have all these words and they don't really want me to rock them to sleep anymore. And it's just it's a different season and I think we need to remember the same goes the other way, right? Like for you with your older kids, if you were focused on, oh, I wish I did this differently, you might be missing out on, like you said, going out and having a cocktail together or spending time together, inviting them to go do the things with you now if you were still focused on what you wish you did when they were little. So I think that's
Hmm.
so important is to not wish away any season, whether it's something in the future or something in the past, because it's so easy to hold on to that ideal situation or like what you think it should look like or what you think might be an easier time when really when we focus on that we miss like the good moments of the season that we're in, and that's like so scary to me, the thought of not enjoying this and like looking back and saying, "Oh my gosh, I wish I was back in this season," right? Cuz that's just how it goes. Like the grass is always
Hmm.
greener, somewhere else unless you water it. So I feel like that's what for me having little kids is like been trying to keep that in the back of my mind and like you said that to be intentional, which does feel like another job sometimes, just to kind of keep that thought at the forefront of your mind so you don't.
Hmm. And also like just for our listeners, we can shift, right? We don't have to like, oh man, I wish I would have done this. They're right. I'm doing this wrong. It's not. It's all about shifting. Parenting
Yeah.
is all about shifting.
Yeah.
And just, do what you can now.
Yeah.
My grandma would tell me, when Eric, my oldest son, was little and he was running around, I would say, I just wish he would sit down for 5 minutes.
Mhm.
And she said to me, she said, and this could, might increase like some guilt, but if we reflect on it on a more productive way,
Mhm.
she told me there is a mom in the hospital wishing their
Mhm.
child was running around.
Yeah.
Be thankful that you're not in that situation.
Yeah.
And it gave me a different perspective of like what it really did was grounded me to think he's supposed to be running around. He's
Mhm.
supposed to be touching things and putting things in his mouth and doing that
Yeah.
means he's hitting milestones,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. That's a great perspective.
and who cares if your house is dirty, and who cares if there's dishes in the sink, and who
Oh,
cares,
yeah.
like who cares? We
Yeah.
have the hardest thing for me when starting a business, another challenge was I'm a very private person and I never did social media. And now I have to be on social media all the
Mhm.
time. And I'm like, ugh,
Yeah.
because I just feel like it's a lot of time consuming, right?
Yeah.
And so I was always worried, like, was somebody going to see my house? Because it falls on the wife, right? If the
Mhm.
house is in disarray, just like if there was holes in the wall and stuff, it would fall on the husband. Like, you need to fix
Yeah.
this house, right?
Yeah.
So I started thinking, like, who's going to see it? And
Mhm.
don't they know I have 4 kids? Whoever came in, and if they have a comment, don't disrupt my peace. My house, I have
Exactly.
no problem saying my house is always loud. It might smell like feet. They're all boys. I try not to, but hey, you can't fix everything. It's gonna
Yeah.
be messy. and you're going to hear us yelling. I'm Mexican. I yell, like, and if you're not ready for that, then I don't know what to
Yeah.
tell
Yeah. I feel
you.
like that is so accurate. Like for me, if the house is, I try to clean up before people come over. I'm like I'm a messy but clean person. Like I have
Mhm.
like the clutter
Messy
is the first
organized.
thing to come. So I can, like I vacuum almost every day. We have 3 dogs and I keep the house clean, but we have our countertops are the first thing to get covered, the clutter, the piles, all of that. And it drives me nuts. But also, if someone comes over and they are focused on the piles on my counters, like, why are you at my house? Right? Like, that's not the person that I
Why are
want
you
there.
focused on that?
Yeah, exactly. We have so much other stuff. I have 3 kids you can focus on. I have animals. We can have a good conversation, right? Like if that's their focus, like that's almost a them problem. That's not a me problem at that point. And that's like
Exactly.
what I need to like remind myself of because sometimes I think we're our own worst critics, especially like when it comes to those things. Like yes, and I don't want to live in a messy house. By no means do I want my house to be like piled high, but there are seasons like my dining table right now is a storage room, like from all the newborn stuff. We have our
Hmm.
baby bassinet, we got the baby tub on there, we've got some piles of clothes that are clean, we have parts of the other car seat that, had to be removed. Like, okay, I don't like it living like that. And I know it's for a season, it won't be for forever. But if someone comes
Exactly.
over and they're not understanding of that, like that's on them at that point. And it's like, I know I spent my time doing the best I could. I got it to my house is clean enough. There's places to sit, there's food in the fridge. I'm very lucky, and I could have spent an hour trying to clean up and put everything away, or I could spend that time with my kids with my husband or on my business. And that's what I chose to do with my time. And that's okay. And I feel like that just ties into that
Hmm.
guilt of like, oh, I don't have my house isn't in perfect condition. It's like, okay, you're living in your house. Your house is meant to be lived in. It's not a staged environment. It's not a hotel room. You're not showcasing, you know what I mean? It's like when you have other priorities, like if your house isn't your number one priority, that's probably a good thing because it means there's other things that you're pouring into that are fulfilling and that you're giving your energy to that.
Right. And I can almost guarantee you those who are cleaning and cooking and their houses are organized, they're not happy because if you're fulfilling if you have 3 kids, if you have more than one child, if you have one child and you have dogs, that's like more kids, right?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you have a spouse and a child and you're trying to make everything look clean and organized, then that means you're filling in your hours with tasks. That
Yeah.
can't be fun,
Yeah.
right? Then you have to really reevaluate like who are you trying to impress? And then again, there's those wonderful people who thrive off organization and they
Mhm.
like as a mental health provider, we're always hearing the clutter in your closet is what looks like in your brain. And I'm like,
Yeah, I
oh,
heard
cool,
that.
because that's exactly what my brain looks, So
Yes,
I'm glad
exactly.
it's coming out, right?
Yeah.
And but what's wrong with that? You
Yeah.
know, the
Yeah.
one of the most I think I read somewhere some of the most intelligent entrepreneurs had ADD.
Mm. Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
their mind is constantly going. So I'm like, oh, cool. I don't know if it was
Yeah.
diagnosed, but I'm sure they had traits because
Yeah.
you can't have a business and only be singular thinking. There's no way.
Yes. That's so
No way.
true. Yeah. And I think that does just hearing you say that, that kind of like sparked a thought for me about like the fact that it's hard to be present as a parent is because I think because our brain as an entrepreneur, it's hard to stop. It's hard to turn it off, which can feel like such a curse in the context of maybe like stopping to be 100% present with your kids, which I'm not saying you shouldn't try to do that, but that's also your gift, right? That's why you're able to succeed in your business a lot of the time because you are able to think big and continue to think deeper once you've solved a problem, you don't stop there, right? You keep going. And I think that it's so easy for us to get caught up on maybe the negative side of something. But if we flip that and we look for the positive in that same trait, like you're saying, it's like, okay, yeah, my closet is not the cleanest, not the most organized, maybe. But because of that, I have the positive side of that is, right, I am good at other things. So I think that's so important to look at too, like where in our life are we focusing on the negative, where if we look at that same exact situation and flip it, what are we doing well? It might uncover talents and skills that we weren't, giving ourselves credit for or prioritizing. And the flip side of that, I mean, if you're someone who's super organized and that's your skill set, like that's great. I think that there's no shame in having like a clean house if you're naturally just like organized. For me, that's not. But, I don't know if you've heard of like the visionary and the integrator. So within a business, typically you need a visionary, the person who's thinking ahead. That's us with our messy closets. And then you have the integrator who's more action based and figuring out the next step to achieve the goal. And my husband is an integrator and I'm a visionary. So he has a very small portion of our closet and he has the same hangers on every one of his shirts facing the right way. And he has, his clothes are all folded and they're sorted by how they should for like the right seasons, where my stuff doesn't always end up like that. He's also a much dirtier person. He's more organized and more less messy, but more dirty. Like for him, he doesn't prioritize all the dog hair being picked up. For me, I can't stand any dog hair on anything. That drives me nuts. So, it's like whatever your skill set is, that's okay. Like you don't have to be good at all the things. I think that's like the big takeaway from this is like, you don't have to be good at all the things, but tap into what you're good at and really embrace that. And then find ways to either delegate what you're not good at, or, how can you focus on your skill set, use those to propel you forward, and then find ways to problem solve for the things that you're not good at, because you don't necessarily need to spend all the time and energy on stuff that you don't like or you're not good at. You just need.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
like I know I'm not the greatest at cleaning. It's not my, but I don't want to. It's boring.
Yeah.
We got a house cleaner,
Yeah.
and that was the best investment. If that means I sacrifice something so that I can have
Yeah.
sanity and not worry about this and that,
Same. Yeah.
the
Yep.
better. Because then I started
Yeah.
just getting resentful because I'm like, my God, you guys are slobs. Why am I still cleaning this? And I'm
Yeah.
like, geez, not the babies, but the older ones.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
because you become so, and my housemate is just so thankful. She's like, oh, I love you guys. I love being here. She's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Same.
you're doing you're
Yeah.
making people happy.
Yeah, and it's like the
you know?
time that you give, like, it's the time that you give to whatever it is. Like for us, like house cleaning, right? Like that's something that my time, that's an energy suck for me. If I'm going to spend the time like
Hmm.
to scrub my toilets and to apparently wash your walls, that was something I didn't know you're supposed to do until like way too late in life. Um like that would be like energy sucking for me. And I would feel resentful if I was spending time away from my kids, away
Hmm.
from my husband, away from my business to do that. Some people, if you are a stress cleaner and that like is something that fulfills you and it kind of fills your bucket, like go for it, do it, find those things. But it's about, being aware of that too. And like realizing it's okay that I don't like that. That's not my skill set.
Hmm.
So what can I delegate or what can I give up, and so I have more time? Because I think when you pour into the things that fill you, your time goes farther. Where when you're pouring into things that don't fill you, it's not.
Hmm. Oh, 100%. And
Yeah.
then you're like, I think that's the key thing. You're resentful. That's why I was
Mm-hmm.
saying, like, are you happy? If this
Yeah.
is what you're,
Yeah.
focused on, and you're doing it in a bitter way, then you're
Yeah.
not, But there's some that just absolutely love it. Like my best friend loves to clean. She won't
Yeah.
clean my house, but she loves to clean. She does her
Yeah.
walls. And then I tell her, like, how do you sit there and clean your walls? Because then if you clean too much, then the paint comes off. I don't rent, so I have to fix it.
Oh my
So I'm
gosh.
like,
Yeah, that's
there's so
yeah.
much you have to consider.
Yeah. And it's like that, I feel like, with parenting, with running a business, all of the different hats we juggle. It's like finding that balance and really making sure that we're prioritizing what matters to us, and being aware that when we're out of balance, how we get back to that. Like, what do we need to sacrifice to feel balanced and aligned, so that we're not just spinning our wheels, or, you know, making strides in the wrong direction away from what we ultimately are working towards. Because I think it's easy to kind of get caught up in that, the day to day, like, I need to do this, I need to do that, when really we need to take a step back and say, okay, what am I working towards? Is this going towards?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. And those are for those that have that spirit of like, I want to start a business. Maybe some are just, they just love having kids and being with kids and being home and cleaning and cooking. And that's cool too. Like but I
Yeah.
was not that person.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
loved my kids. I loved being with my kids. I'm glad I had boys because
Hmm.
I'm told they're not as emotional as girls. But I mean, I have them in my bed still. Like,
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
them will be with us. So I think my 22-year-old would come into the bed and he would lay on the foot of our bed
Hmm.
till he was like maybe 14, 15.
Oh my gosh.
I mean,
That's so
that's
sweet.
that's our thing. Like
Yeah.
we never say anything like get out of here. And now like their girlfriends come over and we have a blast.
Yeah.
My grandma's happy. It's not
That's so
always
cool.
sunshine and rainbows, but
Yeah.
I try to like reframe things because there's nothing like coming home to chaos. I
Yeah.
want peace. I want love, like good chaos, chaos where they're running around and they're eating ice
Yeah.
cream and I have one son that can't have sugar. He goes cuckoo. And it's
Oh
so
my
funny.
gosh.
Sometimes we give him sugar just so we can see it. Like, it's so funny. Um, but I mean, I think it's embracing the beauty of being a mom, embracing dreams, embracing it all. It's all okay. This
Yeah.
too shall pass. Like, the season, like you said, there's a season for everything, right?
Yeah.
A hundred
Yeah.
percent.
So good. Well, Erika, thank you so much. I have loved this conversation. I think it's so important for people to hear about the real and raw parts of our lives, trying to juggle all of the things and wear all the hats. So I appreciate you being.
You can find us on Family Unlock on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, and that's our handle, Family Unlock. And you can also find us as Sean and Erika Blanchard. And then our podcast is on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Music.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Mom Boss Central. I hope you found inspiration, encouragement, and maybe even a few new strategies to rock your mom boss journey. Remember, you're not alone. We're all in this together. And don't forget to share the love with your fellow mom bosses. Make sure to join the community at mombosscentral.com. It's completely free and a space to connect with like-minded women. All you have to do is sign up and start connecting. Until next time, keep pursuing your passions and living authentically. We're so happy to have you as part of the Mom Boss Central community.